What's going on, Johnny Nation? Welcome to episode 194 of the Eye of the Storm podcast. My name is David Barov, and going into Thursday night, you already knew that the number one seed in the Big East tournament was the St. John's Red Storm, who won the Big East Conference. But by 8:47 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Saturday, March 14th, 2026, you knew that the St. John's Red Storm are Big East tournament champions as well. With Rick Pitino at the helm, history seems to continue to be written, with Zubie Ejiofor leading the way. Cutting down the nets at Madison Square Garden is becoming tradition. With 37 seconds left in the game, number 24 would leave the floor for the final time as a player in a Red Storm uniform in a place he has called home for the last 3 years. With tears streaming down his face, he knew what he just helped to accomplish for this team, for these fans, and for his legacy. What St. John's did in the Big East tournament may never be done again. They beat Providence on Thursday 85-72. The score not remotely indicative of how dominant St. John's was in the game, as Rick Pitino pulled his guys with about 5 minutes to play for rest, because Friday was tougher. It was a game against Seton Hall. But the Johnnies prevailed 78-68. And then, well, we all knew it was going to happen. We all wanted it to happen. The world wanted it to happen. The rubber match between Dan Hurley, Rick Pitino, St. John's, UConn, Madison Square Garden, for the whole kit and caboodle, for the whole enchilada, for the trophy that matters most, the Big East tournament title. And well, St. John's absolutely dominated 72-52 and lifted the trophy again. How dominant was this Red Storm team in the Big East tournament? They held the lead for 118 minutes and 16 seconds out of a possible 120 total game minutes. Your St. John's Red Storm absolutely took control and left no doubt. The Red Storm never trailed once. On Saturday night, as St. John's beat UConn by 20 points to win the Big East tournament, it was a beautiful sight. For many diehard fans, for us here at this podcast who have been in this world for so long, to see what happened on Saturday night, there's hard to just put it into words. It's really, really hard, but we're going to try. But on Saturday night, Rick Pitino added another mind-blowing feat to his short 3-year tenure in Queens. On Saturday night, the Empire State Building was lit up red. On Saturday night, the world watched the St. John's Red Storm show everyone that last year was not a mirage. Last year was not an aberration. Last year was not a fluke. On Saturday night, St. John's would be champions of the Big East again. Justin Kramer is here with me. Justin, you were in that building yesterday. We were nervous before the game, but my goodness, what a performance.
I am usually not at a loss for words. I've lost my voice, but I'm not at a loss for words. But this time I'm actually having a problem articulating exactly how I feel. I'll say it this way, though. Last year was like a dream come true. It was completely surreal. I remember going out after the game against Creighton and just talking to longtime fans saying, this doesn't feel like reality. I cannot appreciate the gravity of this moment. And in many respects, I didn't appreciate it because I just didn't believe it. It literally felt like something out of a dream. This year, you come into the season with high expectations, defending the crown, a really tough schedule. And there were some bumps along the way. We've journeyed that. I'm not going to go there now. But when you walked into this Big East tournament, I said to myself, I think we get to the finals, but I think we have a date with UConn at the end. And I had a bad taste in my mouth from that game up in Connecticut just a few weeks ago. So I was scared. And I thought that UConn might be the much better team. I think it was fair to have those doubts. But I will say that as far as yesterday goes, I have never been more proud to be a St. John's fan, and I've never felt the elation that I did before, during, and after that win yesterday because I finally appreciated. Last year was surreal. This time I was living in the moment and just watching the UConn Huskies put up their best fight and get smacked down by one of the best defensive performances I've ever seen by a St. John's team.
I I tweeted it last night. It was about, I don't know. I was leaving the garden around midnight no, it wasn't that late. It was like 10:30, but we were at the bar till about 1 o'clock. Um I've been I've been really wrestling with how to put this night into words. I sent a picture for of the confetti. Um, let me just stop. It's an emotional, very very emotional um, moment for me. Um, I appreciate you, everyone right now who is listening, watching. This isn't possible without you. Johnny Nation is us. We put on these microphones and talk about games. We talk about what's happening. We give our opinion. We put ourselves out there. That comes with praise, that comes with scrutiny, it comes with Twitter trolls, it comes with a lot of nonsense. But you know what else it comes with? The joy, the exuberance, the elation, the hugs, the high fives, the screams that echoed through the garden last night, through the bar last night, through everywhere you walked up and down the street on 33rd and 7th. Last night was for us. That's what makes it so sweet. Doing this podcast, sharing this moment with you guys, it's emotional. Wins like this are emotional. Justin, last year when St. John's won, had 7 fans of all different generations on this podcast to talk about what it meant. Can you imagine telling those people 3, 4 years ago that, don't worry, you don't got to wait too long to feel that again? And they do it again. It is so hard to put it into words what that means because it's so foreign to us as St. John's fans. But like I said, when Rick Pitino is here, that just becomes the norm, apparently. And it's crazy to say that. How about this? In the last 2 Big East tournament final games that St. John's has played in, they've won by 36 points. They beat Creighton last year 82-66, and they went belt to ass on UConn last night 72-52. Justin, the way that this team looked in this Big East tournament, the way that they started each game. Do you know that they started the game on a 27-0 run when you combine all 3 games? 10-0 run against UConn last night, 9-0 run against Providence on Thursday, 8-0 run against Seton Hall on Friday. And what have we talked about so much this year? Those slow starts. And St. John's and Rick Pitino, and he mentioned this, said that, listen, it is imperative that we get out to a hot start. My goodness. 8-0, 9-0, 10-0 kill shot right out the game. Shout out to Evan Mia. If you're a St. John's fan, and we're recording this on Selection Sunday, it's early afternoon, and you guys are going to hear from Brad Wachtel, Hoops HQ bracketologist later on. We spoke earlier this morning as well, and give his thoughts on where St. John's is going to be later tonight as we find out where the Johnnies are seated and where they will be playing. But This was a dominant performance in this tournament. And the way that they look right now, the way that they're trending into March Madness, the way that everybody has their role right now, I don't know how legitimately you are not puffing your chest out today, going to grab the Newsday, going to grab the New York Post, going to grab the Daily News with our Johnnies on the back cover and ready for anything that comes your way next week in the big dance.
That Arkansas game last year looms large because you saw last year's team exposed when RJ Lewis had a poor performance. And simply put, we got outmatched by those SEC bigs that are long and lean and athletic, and they just wore us down. You've got three players that are all Big East players, including the Big East Player of the Year in your front court. You've got experienced guys who've played in the trenches and have been through these battles. Dylan Mitchell, Bryce Hopkins, and of course, your captain, Zubie Ejiofor. There are scary front courts in this country, and I think about Michigan with the size and and just the sheer size that they have up front. It can be very scary, but I will submit to you, we can go toe to toe with these teams this year, and you're starting to see the guards do things that you did not see, even weeks ago. The rotations on defense, the fact that they were picking up their men 94 feet from the basket and making every single move with precision, you're starting to see it come together. And that is why it's exciting. It's exciting because I'm not saying this team is going to win a national championship. I'm not even saying they're going to win a Final Four. What I'm saying is they're going to be in these games, and we don't know what's going to happen. But they're better equipped this year than they were last year, despite the number two or number one defense in the country, depending on who you ask. They're trending in the right direction. They're playing their best brand of basketball, and they're doing it without having those lapses now of 5 minutes or 7 minutes without scoring. They're consistent, and you knew UConn was going to make a run yesterday. You knew it, but they didn't buckle. They took the punch, and then they countered, and they put the lead back up to 15 and never looked back. And that's what was so exciting to see, because you're starting to see traits that winners have, being able to withstand the punch, being able to not have these droughts, not starting off the game down 10-2. That's a winner, and you're starting to see it. And that's why I'm so excited for next week. I don't care who we play. I guarantee you nobody wants to play this team in the tournament, because they look at this and they're like, how do we stop this? Because if we double team the bigs, the guards are going to go crazy. And if we guard the three line, Zubie Ejiofor and company are going to go nuts inside. That is a really nice luxury to have.
And hey, if you want to sag off of Zubie Ejiofor and let him shoot that three, oh, that three was on display last night. The first one was a big dagger. That last one with about 2 minutes left to go, where he kind of put a little shake on it and hit it from straight away. That was something, a nice cherry on top. We'll get to Zubie in a bit. Again, like guys, like this episode is not super structured. This is not this is all from the heart. This is all passion. This is trying to fall asleep last night. Impossible. I'm on 3 hours of sleep today. It is cloud 9 million. What we saw last night, as Justin said, championship material. Big East tournament championship material. What is so impressive, Justin? That taste in your mouth is very fresh of that 32-point ass kicking that UConn delivered to you 17 days ago from the game yesterday, 18 now. You had to wonder what team was going to show up. And like we've said a few times, going into this game, after that beatdown that UConn delivered in Connecticut, everybody kept saying, like, oh my God, this St. John's team, how are they going to respond? And St. John's responds with a 32-point win against Villanova. St. John's hasn't lost since that moment. we always talk about what's the pivotal moment that you look back on the season that propels you, right? We talked about that January 3rd loss to Providence was so huge it led to a 13 game winning streak. Then you get that absolute just woodshed performance, no show, missing your last 24 shots, complete aberration, anomaly, performance of unheard of things in Connecticut. And you haven't lost since. And you've looked pretty damn good since then. So that is how you have to feel. And Justin, you told me before we started, probably one of, if not the best defensive performance you've ever seen from a Johnny's team. And when you consider the stakes, what was at play, how much that game meant for Rick Pitino, for St. John's, for Zubie Ejiofor's legacy, that was a masterclass of defense, an absolute masterclass of defense against a team in UConn that would kill that would kill you from three, right? That was the first 20-point loss. Get this, guys. Sit down. If you're somehow standing or running somewhere, take a beat for a second. If you're at the gym right now, sit down. That was the first 20-point loss for UConn since 2019 in the AAC tournament, which was Dan Hurley's first season when it lost to Houston 84-45 on March 15th, 2019. The 52 points that they scored last night was a season low. That's how good that St. John's defense was, anchored by Zubie Ejiofor last night.
UConn is an elite offensive team. I told you, Tibbs went and saw their practice right earlier this year. And he said that when he was evaluating some of these teams, he said Alabama and UConn, those teams can score the basketball. Houston, elite defense, and that we had depth for miles. That's what Tibbs said, right? Like earlier on in the season. This is an elite offensive.
Justin, just for context, I don't know. I don't think we've shared that story on the podcast.
Well, it's time to share it.
It's time to share. So why don't you just share the actual story?
So former Knicks coach Tom Thibodeau was doing some preseason review to kind of get a sense of what some of the elite or proposed elite college basketball teams looked like this year. And as the story goes, Rick Pitino said to Tibbs, like, what do I have to worry about with some of these other teams? And he said, listen, Houston's defense is elite. They are the best defensive team in the country. And that is something that obviously Rick Pitino can appreciate because last year, us and Houston were the best defensive teams. And Houston obviously is very, very good. He said, when it comes to UConn and Alabama, those teams can score the basketball and will probably be the best offensive teams in the country with their backcourts and their ability to play inside and out and just run up the score. And so if you don't hold them in check, you're going to get beat. And he said that St. John's strength was something that we've talked about, not in terms of playing 12 guys, but the depth that they can go deeper into the depth chart and have guys step up a Ruben Prey, a lefty, guys that when called upon, they can step up and fill the void. Not every team has the luxury of going to play an IO off the bench when a guy picks up foul trouble, right? So that was going to be our straight, according to Thibodeau. And so when we say that this UConn team was held to a season low 52 points, that is an achievement. And let me say this. There are times this year where St. John's didn't score the basketball, not because we played against a great defense. We just missed shots. Mm-hmm. We just missed shots. And as a result, we didn't get we didn't score the basketball the way that we're accustomed to. UConn didn't miss shots. The reason they missed the shots was because the defense was stifling. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a function of, well, UConn was just cold, right? They shot 33% from the field, 34% from the field, 15% from three. It wasn't because they just couldn't find the hole, right? It was because St. John's didn't allow them to get good looks. And you saw the frustration. When was the last time you saw Mullins take shots that were just off balance and off kilter, fading away to the bench? Or you see solo ball rushing. The UConn sets are very intricate. And if you watch the movement, it is really beautiful. And credit to Dan Hurley, he is a phenomenal coach. The way he gets his team prepared, but the frustration was showing yesterday because St. John's was switching, not allowing them to get into their rotations and their sets. And then you're seeing solo ball launch three pointers that he had no business taking. And like I said, Mullins was off, Caravan was off. It was just beautiful. Use the word masterclass. That is the word. It was a masterclass defensive performance.
UConn only had 5 turnovers in that 32-point win against St. John's on February 25th. On Saturday, they had 17. On February 6th, when St. John's beat them, they had 15. You turn the ball over, especially live ball turnovers, you're going to lose against St. John's. In that game against UConn and Hartford, Tarris Reed was just, I think I called him Tim Duncan. Just incredible. What I thought was super important in this game was right away from the start, they made it really difficult to get Tarris Reed the ball and for him to get comfortable kind of scoring. In that first game, he was just one catch, boom, move going up in it. And in this one, it took him a while. In the first half, he, had some buckets, but he was 2 of 6. He had 4 points, 3 rebounds, and he picked up the 2 fouls. It was the formula to success in the first game as well. And that is really what you wanted to see. And, while it was pretty obvious, and you said, when I was on with Rob Doster at Field of 68, I said the same thing going into that game against Hartford. Like, you got to mimic that game plan from the first one. And it's like, yeah, obviously, but UConn is going to try to combat that. So this time, it just worked again. And the defense was just so much better connected. You saw in that second game against UConn, the transition defense was horrific. You just let UConn run out. You couldn't get set. Your defense was just sloppy, and the game was over really, really quickly. In this one, the game was pretty much over, early in that first half. And yes, UConn did make a comeback with, like you said, that they would. They got it to within 7. How crazy is that? That the closest the UConn Huskies got to St. John's in the Big East tournament title game was 7 points. Justin, it's absolutely insane. You want more stats about how good that defense is? Sure you do. The Huskies had 0.82 points per possession. It was the program's lowest single game output since registering 0.80 against Houston January 23, 2020. Hey, who just talked about Houston having a good defense? There was only one Husky that reached double figures. It was Tarris Reed Jr. Solo ball, 3 points, 1 of 7. Silas Demry Jr., 1 of 6, 6 points. Alex Caravan, in his last game at the Garden that all these UConn fans want to cheer about, 3 of 8, 7 points. Braylon Mullins, going into the NBA next year, 2 of 9, 5 points. Malachi Smith made 1 shot, 5 points. It was domination. And Johnny Nation, be proud. Be proud of what you saw because look, St. John's didn't shoot the 3 well. They didn't bury them with the 3. They didn't even get to the line that much. You can't even say the referees got involved. There was only 17 trips to the line, but they made most of them, 13 to 17. It was turnovers. It was 24 points off of 17 turnovers by UConn. That's where the game was won, and it was simply the clamps and the will to win. Rick Pitino went into this game and he said, no one talked about revenge. They just knew what they had to do. And the Johnnies won 72-52.
Have you ever seen the Garden so loud as you did yesterday? Objectively. And listen, credit to the UConn fans in one sense. They bring it. They come, they pack the Garden, they bring it. I thought it was a little ridiculous that they were saying that we're terrible because we were trouncing them. So if we're terrible and you're losing by 20, I don't know what that says about you. I mean, we had some people in our section that I guess were just a little upset or whatnot. But the reality is this: that Garden was loud, and I liken it to like a heavyweight boxing match. And I've had the pleasure of seeing, a boxing match where with every punch, it was the oohs and the ahs and people reacting to each basket or each possession. And that's what it felt like. The Garden was rocking, and I almost want to go back and just watch the TV stream to hear it, on with the benefit of surround sound and everything else, just to kind of immerse myself in it. But I thought that the crowd was on fire last night. Was it the loudest that you've ever seen MSG? Because I think it was. I don't remember a time that MSG was louder, and I'm talking about Knicks playoff games. I'm talking about big time Rangers games.
I'll tell
It
you when.
was.
I'll
Yeah,
tell you
when?
when it was. February 6th. February 6th was the loudest that the Garden was until last night.
Yeah.
And like you said, credit to the UConn fans because there were a lot of them, but that was a 50-50 split last night. And big time shout out to St. John's fans because against Providence and Seton Hall, I thought the crowd was a little lackluster, honestly.
But you know what? There's a reason for that. And I actually talked about this with someone offline yesterday. The reason it was lackluster is because the Providence game wasn't competitive, and it's hard to get juiced up against Providence when they're not that good. Let's call it for what it is. Seton Hall, again, St. John's had a lead. They play ugly. It just I feel like when you're playing with a lead, you're not going to have that same intensity. And listen, last night was the game where the fans needed to step up in that sense and be the sixth man, and that's what they did.
Yeah, and again, credit to UConn fans because they tried to will their team back into it. Those stupid UConn chants rained like thunderbolts through the Garden every chance they got, but UConn never got the lead from it. And St. John's, their fans, it got loud many, many times. Hopkins hit a three in the first half after the alley oop from Hopkins to Zubie, and then Hopkins hit a three. Boy, did that place get loud. Then there was a massive, massive moment in the second half where things just kind of really, really spiraled. The back to back alley oops, Dylan to Dylan alley oop, the windmill dunk from Mitchell might might have been the loudest I've heard the Garden. Like it was deafening.
And it was only half the crowd, right? Because obviously UConn fans are not cheering that play. So you had what, 8 to 10,000 people losing their minds, and it was the loudest. You're right. That was probably the pinnacle of. They had to check the noise to make sure that there was not like a Guinness Book of World Records set for the noise that came out after that dunk.
I couldn't believe it. The the sequence, right? That sequence was unbelievable because Zubie Ejiofor hits the hook shot, right? On Terrace Reed. I think he hits a three. He hits the hook shot. Then he does the too small on Terrace Reed, who was doing that to him in Connecticut all game. Right after the hook shot, Zubie erases Silas's shot. Dylan gets the carom, goes windmill the other way. What an absolute sick moment. An absolute sick moment. And it was just unbelievable. St. John's had a response every single time. UConn went on a 13-2 run in the second half. Johnnies were 1 of 7. They were kind of coming back into the game. Hopkins hits that mid-range. Bryce Hopkins had himself a hell of a Big East tournament. He was on the all Big East tournament team. We're going to play a clip from Bryce in a bit. The guy stepped up in this one. Everybody played a key role. Sellers, Hopkins, Dylan Darling, who was having an atrocious Big East tournament. In that second half,
From a shooting standpoint, I
yes,
agree. But
yes.
everything, the intangibles, the defense, the grit, he was very good, but he couldn't hit a shot all tournament,
Yeah,
to be fair.
Darling was 1 of 6 in the first half, and then he hit two really huge shots in the second half. Was just monstrous, and you gotta credit the resolve. You gotta credit, and his defense was phenomenal all game. Just a awesome performance, and the just key moments that St. John's responded. I was I don't know if you remember a few key moments that stand out to you, but like it was huge that St. John's did answer again. They never let UConn get closer than 7.
Yeah, and at that point, you start getting a little nervous, saying, "Oh, the wheels coming off." But they took the punch, and as I said, they countered, and then all of a sudden it was back to 23, at 22 or 23 at its highest, before obviously settling with the 20-point win. That Zubie block running in transition and the dunk was the play, and I say that because it really exemplified everything that you're happy about with this team: the defense, the ability to run in transition, and the ability to finish at the rim. And you saw it all on full display in about 11 seconds, which was incredible. That being said, you know, now you're the hunted, right? Two years in a row that you are not only the regular season, but the Big East tournament champion. And it's interesting because when you go to opposing arenas, they have the game circled as a lottery game for them now that you're coming into their arena. Or, you look at the Big East tournament, it's no longer, well, can St. John's do it? No, the question is who's going to dethrone them, right? Like the narrative shifts completely as a result of this. But what I love was what Zubie said after the game. As great as this win was, as much as he's put the city on his back, he said, we're not done yet. There's still work to do.
They all said that. There was this collective mentality. Osiah Sellers said it. Let's actually play. Let's play Bryce Hopkins here. Bryce was asked about how he felt, kind of because he transferred over here, all the stuff that he's had to deal with, and his message to everybody.
Yeah, it means a lot. We put in so much work starting in the summer, and we're still putting in a ton of work right now. And it's just so rewarding that all the work that we put in the summer and all the long days, the long nights, the ups and downs, it paid off. We're not done yet. We have a lot more to go that we want to achieve, but this is definitely rewarding right now for sure.
He said we're not done yet, and he said the hard work paid off. And Osiah Sellers said the same thing. Said we're not done yet. And that's the mentality from this team, man. They are a senior laden team that knows that they got a lot to play for. I want to go back to just a few moments as we continue to jump around. What did you think of Danny Hurley getting a technical uh, early? You know, 12:34 in the game. So where I was sitting, I was in the media section. I was about 5 rows back in the media section, and we were on UConn's side of the bench. I'll be honest, I can't believe they teed him up. Um, from what I understand and what I saw Hurley jump up and down and stomp his feet like twice, and he was yelling something about like, "How could you not get?" It was on a Silas layup, and I guess he wanted an and one, and he caught a tee. I didn't think that he was demonstrative by Dan Hurley's standards. He's done a lot worse. So I was pretty shocked that that happened. And that was just a huge moment because, like, listen, that kind of neutralized Dan Hurley and his kind of possible impact on the game because he knew that if he continued his boisterous usual act, that it could lead him getting thrown out.
By Hurley standards, I didn't see anything that was extraordinary. I thought that it was a little bit of a quick trigger, but let's be honest, even if they hadn't called that technical foul, Hurley was not going to win this one for the team because even if a call or two goes their way, you still win by double digits at a minimum. So it's kind of like revisionist history in that sense, I guess. But I was shocked. I thought it was a very quick whistle, especially given some of the stuff that we've seen him do. And I'm sure, and again, I'm not that I watch every UConn game, but I see enough of them to know when Hurley is kind of working the refs.
Yeah.
It's one of the things he does best.
And it was just, it was kind of like an avalanche was happening. It was, I think it was like 18-7, right as that was
It was
happening. So,
frustration. He couldn't stop
mhm.
it. Like it's the football coach that runs down the field and tackles the player. When he's running for a touchdown because he
Yeah.
just can't control his emotions. That's what it was, that
Yeah.
you just could not stop it, and it was like a freight train coming at them. So
Yeah.
I don't feel bad. I don't feel bad at all. Let's be honest. But it was good to see that he was
Yeah.
unable to control things. Let's put it
Yeah.
that way.
Johnny started the game 9-13. It was 23-9. Shortly thereafter, it was 32-19. Um, they go into halftime 40-27. I don't know if people really noticed this, but there was a huge moment right before halftime. Mitchell went to the line and he made one of two, which actually uh, made it impossible for UConn to get into single digits should they make the next bucket, which they were kind of like trying to fight back into it. And there was momentum. The crowd was getting into it. And so I thought that was super important to not allow that because that's psychological. We've talked about that a few times here on this podcast, but it was 40-27 at the break. Edgefor had 10, Sellers, Hopkins each had 8. The defense was solid. St. John's was shooting 50% from the floor, and they turned the Huskies over 11 times. Like the recipe for the win was already seen in the first half. And in the second half, St. John starts hot again. 7-2 run opens, but then UConn responded with a 7-0 run of their own. Another key moment happened when Patino challenged Zubie's block that was called a goaltend on the floor, and that was ruled successful. Where I was sitting, that was a clean block. I was shocked that they called it goaltending. Um, but like UConn again went on a 9-0 run, and it was just this. They went on runs, but St. John's just had a response, and again, it was 49-42 with 12:24 to play. UConn wasn't striking distance. It was a 13-2 run. UConn chance all over the place. St. John's was one of their last 7. Timeout. There was the under, I think it was get to the under 12 timeout. 5-0 response right out of the timeout. The Hopkins mid-range turnover, Zubie 3, 54-42, just like that. That's the championship response that we're talking about. It was just insane. That was the way that you needed them to respond. Zubie Ejiofor becomes the first player to record at least 15 points and 6 blocks in a game since Hashim Thabit. And he had 6 overtimes to do it in 2009. I just can't stop talking about the effort level, the will to win, the desire, all the cliches that you want to talk about that exemplify this team and what we've seen all year after the 9-5 start. That tough start when, I called them soft. The tough start when we were, hearing all the noise from the outside world about, hey, this team can't do it. They're not built to win. The pieces don't fit, all that stuff. There's no point guard. What about now? What about after you saw that last night?
Gotta be excited. I don't know, what is it? As the time of this recording, we're hours now away from finding out where they're playing, who they're playing, what the possible matchups are in the second round and all that. It's exciting. I am happy that they have that mentality that the season is not over yet, that this was just one of many milestones that they seek to accomplish this season. But if you are a St. John's fan, sit down and relish this because you're looking at a team that could go on a run right now. I'm not saying they will. Matchups play a lot into it. As we all know, after the first round, every game is tough. That second round game, whether they're a 4 or a 5 seed, they're going to play another very good team.
Mm-hmm.
It's fact. The fact is, this team could lose in the second. Any team can lose in the second round because you're playing a good team once you get out of that first round. But be excited because the possibility is there to make a run like we haven't seen in the better part of 25 years.
Yeah, I mean, this is all about kind of relishing the moment and realizing that at 9-5, nobody really thought that we would be in this position. And your Big East tournament champions, again, Your Big East Conference champions again. You're hopefully going to be a 4 seed. We're going to talk to Brad Wachtel here in a few minutes, and that's what we're waiting for tonight. Few more really key moments from this game, and then I got to tell some anecdotes from the evening. St. John's let UConn get 3 offensive rebounds late in that second half. It was 5 minutes and 54 seconds left to play. I thought it was a potential breaking point for UConn to get back into the game. It was close, but they got 3 offensive rebounds and did not score. Darling responded with a layup the other way. Then it was a turnover. Darling is fouled. Just a huge sequence that St. John's pushed it to 62-49. And, as Jaden Ross shot a 3 that missed, Darling responds with a 3 of his own, 65-49, and the Garden blew up. The Garden blew up because the Red Storm fans I think, took a sigh, like a deep sigh of relief, or like, it's ours. And then there was a 10-0 run, kind of right at the end, 69-49, 20-point lead. You look up and you're like, holy shit. UConn held scoreless to 4:37. UConn finished the game 0 of their last 13, 1 for their last 15, and did not make a field goal for the last 8 minutes and 3 seconds. Sound familiar? Kinda, right? That feels good, doesn't it? Man, you gotta love it.
What are your expectations going forward? And I don't want to like put the cart before the horse, but do you have a floor in mind at this point where like
Yeah.
as a fan, you are saying to yourself, they have to do this or, the season, it's unrealistic to say national championship or bust. That I think is absurd.
No.
But are you saying to yourself it's Sweet 16 or bust at this point?
I think the absolute floor is 2 wins, the absolute floor, and I'm getting to the territory of 3. I know that's
Oof.
really, really hard. And
So you're suggesting that they're gonna, in order to be that they're gonna pick off a 1 seed because they're getting a 4 or a 5. We know that. I mean, we're confident
right.
about that.
Very confident, yes.
And so that means they'd be beating a 4 or a 5 en route to a Sweet 16 matchup with a 1 seed. And we don't know if that's going to be Duke or Arizona or Michigan or maybe Florida, but you're suggesting that you think they're going to pick off one of those number ones.
I'm not suggesting it, but I'm taking
You're
into
outright
how
saying it.
St. John's is playing right now. 2 wins is the floor. The way that they're playing, if you look at how St. John's played on Saturday night and you bottle that, as difficult as it may be, and you're going to hear this from Brad Wachtel, it's all about matchups, right? It's all about that's you saw it last year with Arkansas, just a bad matchup for that team. This year, I feel like they're much better equipped to handle kind of anything that they're going to see. Now, Duke is beat up. They're not healthy. Are they a 1 seed that could potentially get picked off? Florida has a tremendous front court. Can you imagine Dillon Mitchell, Bryce Hopkins, and Zubie Ejiofor going up against that front court? That's going to be elite. But they just lost to Vanderbilt. They got their doors blown off. Arizona's real dangerous. They beat Houston yesterday. They're dangerous. They're going to be a 1 seed. And Michigan, well, they're a pretty good front court too, but they're having some trouble shooting and they're injured too. Can it happen? Hell yeah, it can happen. Hell yeah, it can happen. These Johnnies, well, the team that is going to be picked to face this St. John's Red Storm, I guarantee you, at 6:30 on CBS when Selection Sunday show rolls around, you're going to hear, ugh, that's not the team that I know they want to face. Nobody wants to face Rick Pitino's St. John's Red Storm team. You're going to hear that. So, yeah, we'll see. Justin, we've gone pretty long here without talking about somebody really important. Zubie Ejiofor put a capstone on his St. John's season as a player last night. He walked off the court in tears. He embraced Rick Pitino, and as he hugged Steve Masiello, started really bawling. It was an incredible moment for the fans to serenade him with 37 seconds left. It was an incredible moment of watching greatness get appreciated. I thought it was an amazing moment of your stalwart player playing the way that is needed in the biggest moment possible. It's hard to have words to say about him that can continue. Um, but he was the one that made sure and refused to let St. John's lose. When UConn got within 7, Zubie did not let them lose. 18 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 steals, and a Big East championship game record 7 blocks. It's incredible. And I'm saying that I'm having a hard time to put it into words. Here's some guys that didn't. Some guy named Mark Jackson that did a thing or two at St. John's said, some people are saying, is he a pro? I looked at them like they're crazy. What he does on a nightly basis at St. John's will absolutely translate to the next level. I'm excited about his next step. He'll be there, and he'll be there for a long time. Mark Jackson was asked if he thinks Zubie will be a first-round pick. I don't think it, he said. I know it. You pass him up, you're trying to think too hard. You'll make a mistake and regret it down the road. He's a no-brainer. However you decide to measure it, he is capable or able. He's a no-brainer. What he has done at St. John's University has been absolutely historic. He's a high character, high quality guy. His energy, effort, and enthusiasm is contagious. Some guy named Walter Berry was there last night too. I don't know if you heard of him. He did a thing or two at St. John's. He said, hey, he's got numbers like I had, he joked. He really played well tonight. I mean, 7 blocks is incredible. That's Hakeem Olajuwon-like. Barry continued and said that Zubie's going to be a good pro. He's going to get to the NBA and do well, and he showed tonight that he belongs in the big leagues. I want to play a quick clip what Zubie said after the game. And he talked about crying, and he was up there on the stage with Dylan Mitchell, Bryce Hopkins, and Osiah Sellers. Take a listen to Zubie.
Who was crying?
You was crying? See? I told you about that. 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 I seen that tear. I seen that tear, bro. Don't do that.
You see, this is why I don't be doing nothing. I can't even show emotion no more. Anyways, man, it was just bittersweet. You know, obviously, like I've said, pretty much all year, we've had a target on our backs, and we had to battle through adversity all season. Nobody, believed that we could get to this moment but us, everybody in the locker room, and these guys, they earned it, man. They earned it. This is why they came here for, and we accomplished, a few of the goals that we set out to do.
Zubie talking about, it's okay to cry, but that's why I don't do it, because you guys all make fun of me. But it was an emotional night, man. It was an emotional night, and, I hate kind of giving up some state secrets, but like I was a nervous wreck going into this game, and I'm talking to a bunch of people, and I'm talking to Andy Filacek, and I'm talking to Sheena Filacek, Zubie's parents, before the game, and we're on the train and we're texting, and I'm like, guys, I'm a nervous wreck, and they're like, yeah. And then I get a picture sent to me. And it's a picture of Zubie Ejiofor just kind of hanging out with headphones on with this mean mug focused face. And I was like, oh, he's ready. I feel better now. Zubie Ejiofor is a kid that is impossible to put into words of what he means to St. John's fans. And he was walking outside yesterday after the game and walking to the team hotel. And he has the game ball in one hand. He's got his most outstanding player of the year of the Big East tournament trophy in the other hand. And he's taking pictures with fans and stopping, and embracing the kind of celebrity status that he has so earned. And I had a bunch of friends who said that, they saw him because I left before he left. And there's nobody that deserves it more. There's nobody that has earned this more. There's nobody that has exemplified what it means to be high character, championship material, a good person. There's no ego there. And let me just peel back the curtain a little bit more. Again, not to give state secrets, but Andy Filacek, Sheena Filacek, Latin Josh, his aunt and uncle, his brothers are such an amazing support system for him. They have created this person who is this beast on the court and flips a switch and is the most humble and gracious young man that you can ask for. As a St. John's fan, that's all you can ask for respectful young men to represent your program. Justin, you know this better than anybody. Running Storm marketing, it is important that, the brand is shown and focused in a certain way. I think you can attest to it in your dealings with Zubie and his family over the years, dealings with St. John's, that having these kinds of people be the beacons for what your program is like, there is no price. There's no NIL price that you can put on it. Zubie Ejiofor is priceless. Rick Pitino is going to have a lot of hard work in the portal to replace Zubie Ejiofor. We know that. But to me, he's the defensive player of the year in the Big East. He's the scholar athlete in the Big East. He's the player of the year in the Big East. And he's the most outstanding player in the Big East tournament in the Big East. He's the only player in Big East history to do that. And all of that fails in comparison to the type of young man that Zubie Ejiofor is. I am proud beyond belief that he is the representation for St. John's. I am proud beyond belief that he is somebody that I've been able to get to know and appreciate every second of the way here. And all of that comes from his amazing family, and most of all, the support that he has gotten from you guys as fans, because I know and I can tell you that that kid genuinely loves you back.
Let me say a couple of things about Zubie, because I think now is a good time to bring it up. It's his last game at Madison Square Garden. St. John's has to do the right thing here and hang that jersey up next year.
Yep.
Don't wait 3 years. Don't wait 5 years. At some point, he's going to be coming back to Queens, because whatever NBA team drafts him is going to be not only getting a great young man and a great basketball player, but they're going to get a guy who's going to hang around, as Mark Jackson said. So he's coming back to Queens. And I don't know when and how that's going to coincide with the St. John's schedule, but they have to find a way to hang that jersey next year, because he is literally the face of the program. Everyone says Rick Pitino brought the school back, and he did, but he did it because of Zubie Ejiofor, at least in large part. So I don't want that to get lost. But if you want to talk about the impact that this kid has had, I'm going to give you an example that hits very close to home. This is a true story. My mom has watched me go to St. John's and graduate from the business school, watched me graduate from law school, has watched me go to games for decades, form Storm marketing, try to do whatever I can in whatever way we can to bring the program back to prominence. There's one player she's asked me to get an autograph from, and that's Zubie Ejiofor. She loves him. She thinks he is the consummate face of the franchise, the face of the program. And my mom is not an autograph hound. She's got one autograph, and it's Paul McCartney. And quite frankly, she'd leave all of us for Paul McCartney, right? So the fact that Zubie Ejiofor, to my mom, is being held in as high regard as Sir Paul tells you everything you need to know about this guy. And I was hesitant to tell the story because I don't want to make it seem like she doesn't care about what I do, but that's not the point. The point is she has embraced Zubie the way that Zubie this kid from Texas has embraced New York City and St. John's University. And so I'd be remiss not to share that story for some context here, because you have just witnessed the last home game for the face of a generation when it comes to St. John's University.
Rick Pitino and Zubie Ejiofor, the perfect marriage at the perfect time, at the most perfect, necessary moment in St. John's basketball history. Mullen, Berry, Jackson, D'Angelo, Shamari, Hardy, Champagny, Hatton. I know I'm missing a lot of other big names. Ejiofor's impact, winning in the era that he is doing it, where players don't stick around, where everybody chases a paycheck. Hard not to put him on the Mount Rushmore. Hard. St. John's, please follow the lead of UConn, who you beat last night. Put 24 upstairs. You don't want to retire it because, it's kind of symbolic, and, Zubie's wearing 24, and technically Tony Jackson wore it before, and he's immortalized. Put Zubie Ejiofor's name in the rafters. Don't wait. Don't wait. Greatness deserves to be recognized. Greatness deserves to be rewarded.
One more thing I'd like to say. St. John's will be presenting the Ring of Honor next year at Madison Square Garden. There aren't too many people on this list. You got Luke Hornacek, Chris Mullen, Walter Berry, Mark Jackson, Sonny Dunn, Tony Jackson, Joe Lapchick, my ex-assistant Dick McGuire, Malik Sealy, and Alan Seidman. That will be presented at Madison Square Garden next year. But we got an 11th that we're going to add. Number 24, Zubie. Yeah!
Saying Zubie Ejiofor is great is an understatement. Replacing Zubie Ejiofor is going to be difficult is an understatement. Saying I'm going to miss Zubie Ejiofor is a understatement. Saying Johnny Nation is going to miss Zubie Ejiofor is an understatement. Rick Pitino's talked about retiring without Zubie Ejiofor, but I think safe to say that that's not happening. Reports earlier this week that a restructured contract is on the way for Rick Pitino, and sources tell me that is very close to being pen to paper. So certainly good to hear that, as Rick Pitino looks to be here for hopefully at least the duration of the 3-year contract, and who knows, maybe more. Just quickly again as we wrap up here, I saw Richard Pitino last night. It was here cheering on Dad. It was really a fun moment to see him. Got to see Mrs. Pitino in the back. She was an emotional wreck. I have to point out, one of the perks and appreciations of this, and you guys listening, I was credentialed to cover the Big East tournament, and I was on the floor to see it all. I've got the confetti in the bag again, right next to the other last year's confetti, but I was right there on the ropes as they were cutting down the nets. And again, a really special moment. And shout out to my relationships with the amazing assistant coaches with on this team: Talik Brown, Ricky Johns, Bob Walsh, Stevie Mass, our stats guy, Jason Fortin, making sure that we got some great pictures of them cutting down the nets. And the sweetest moment was the last string to be cut. And I think Kenny Klein was trying to get Rick to go up there, and Rick was like, nah, I'm going up there only with one guy. And he put his arm around Zubie Ejiofor, and they climbed the ladder together. And they embraced on the ladder, and they cut the net of the Big East tournament title down together. And it's the most beautiful, legendary moment I can remember as a St. John's fan. And to be there on the floor to witness it, I got to show Mrs. Patino my pictures of the moment, which was really cool. And she loved it. She was getting emotional watching it because she saw like how Rick Pitino was embracing Zubie. Just a really, really cool moment. And one more anecdote. Gosh, I have so many from last night, but it's gonna have to do another podcast.
Hmm.
I'm running around on the floor, just kind of embracing the moment, and I walk over to Ed Cull and give him a hug, congratulate him on everything. I mean, what an amazing first few months on the job for Eddie Cull. I mean, my God, 2 years here, and look what he's been able to help accomplish. But some other guy was there. Guys might have heard of him. His name is Mike Rapoli. And I'm walking around, and I saw Mike actually a few times at the Providence game. And Mike gave me a hug at the Providence game, and he's like, dude, what's going on? Like, appreciate it being on the podcast, all that good stuff. And then Saturday, I see him on the floor on the stage, and Mike calls over to me, and he's like, Dave. I'm like, what's up, Mike? He goes, come up here. And he was on the stage. He was with his Queens buddies that he talked about on the episode, which you guys haven't listened to it yet. Please, what the hell are you waiting for? So he calls me up on the stage, and all the players, everybody was just taking pictures on the stage, and Rapoli's up there with his buddies, and he's like, let's take a picture. And he's like, look, I do the podcast. Look at us now. We did the podcast together, champions. And really, really awesome moment, he goes. And that was just really, really fun. We took a really cool picture. And then we took a picture with the whole Queens crew. And that was really, really awesome. So shout out to all the boys from Queens, the entire Rapoli crew. Shout out to Noble and everybody that's been supporting St. John's along the way. That was a really, really fun moment that I will cherish forever. And, well, as I was getting off the podium, Mike Rapoli was like, hey, hold on. I'm like, yeah, what's up? And he's like, where are we going? Where are we going, and what's our seed going to be? And I said, well, I'm pretty sure we're going to be a 4 seed, and we're probably going to be in Philly. We'll see, but that's what I'm thinking with this UConn win. Why? Because let's look at the metrics. Let's look at where St. John stands on Selection Sunday. 28-6, 15 in net, 16 in KenPom, 15 in Torvik. They're 17-5 in quad 1 and quad 2 wins. 5-5 in quad 1, and they've got 3 quad 1A wins. They're 12-0 in quad 2. They're 13 in wins above bubble. This is a 4 seed at minimum. And I really think that that's where they're going to be. And, I think that we're going to find out later tonight. Let's see. But Justin, final words as we get into Selection Sunday, final words about the Big East tournament title. Anything else from last night that you want to share about a magical, magical Saturday night at the Garden?
All I want to say is thank you. Thank you to the people that have supported store marketing. Thank you to Mike Rapoli for supporting NIL as well. Thank you to the fans for showing out and showing up yesterday and for being loud and combating those UConn cheers that were raining down at certain points. Thank you to everyone, because the reality is this, and I mentioned it at the outset. What I saw yesterday was the single most joy that the single most joyous moment that I've ever gotten out of being a St. John's fan, because it was the culmination of so many things all coming to a head, almost the cherry on top of last year's magical run. And as much as I want to say thank you, and that's what I really just kind of want to end with, just getting started, baby, because we're about to play some more basketball, and I can't wait for it.
We're not done yet. That's what the kids said. That's what the players said. We're not done yet. Hey, Johnny Nation got 6 more wins to get. How about that? How about 6 more wins? Season's not done. Let's find out what this team has in store for March Madness. He's Justin Kramer. Johnny's, we are Big East champions. Big East tournament champions. Conference, tournament, back-to-back. The first program ever to go outright Big East Conference title and tournament back to back. Congratulations, Johnny fans. This is for you. Enjoy it. Embrace it. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for supporting this podcast and making all of this possible. We do it for you. And now we're not done yet. So let's see what Selection Sunday has in store. Kick back, enjoy. If you're headed to campus for the party, enjoy it, embrace it all. Johnny Nation, thank you for listening. Catch you next time.